will be answering the question, how does urbanization affect the water infrastructure across the world? Through this question, it has led me to the claim I will be arguing today. Urbanization negatively affects water infrastructure, causing contaminated water distribution and scarcity of clean water in China and developing countries, while causing environmental decline in China, as well as having health effects on those who live near contaminated water sources in developing countries. So first we should determine exactly what is water infrastructure. Water infrastructure is the amount of water that is available for use by a country or a city. This water infrastructure can be used for two main reasons: drinking water and waste. The people cannot survive without their drinking water, and when there's a pileup of waste due to not being taken care of, it can cause nasty diseases and possibly death. Without a clean and usable water infrastructure, a country will be unable to properly support its people. This is becoming very prominent in developing countries where there are more water sources that are becoming contaminated. It has been found that 2 to 5 million deaths per year are caused by preventable waterborne diseases. Millions are dying because their country's water infrastructure is too vulnerable to urbanization. In this graphic, it shows exactly what is the water system, and you've likely seen many of these things in your daily life as water infrastructure surrounds us, meaning that when it's affected, it affects our daily lives. Next, I will evaluate the effects urbanization has on water infrastructure. A prediction in the Urban Transformation of the Developing World, written by Mark Montgomery, a population researcher and former co-chair of the U.S. National Academy of Sciences panel on urban population dynamics, gives an estimate of urban growth. During the period 2000 to 2024, the world's total population is expected to grow by 1.76 billion people. And with some of this, 86% of growth is expected to be concentrated in cities and developing countries. This is basically saying that urbanization is centralized around these developing countries. This is because of the rapid amount of population growth, which leads to more people needing goods, which then ensues urbanization. Urbanization has also been found to have a negative result on the water quality. A study of water quality in the Huangpu River over the course of 49 years concludes that rapid urbanization corresponds with the rapid degradation of water quality, meaning urbanization in high levels has a direct result on the water infrastructure by contaminating it. This statistic in the center here, which states industry dumps an estimated 300 to 400 metric tons of polluted waste into waters every year. This shows the astonishing connection between urbanization and the degradation of water infrastructure. As stated previously by Montgomery, urbanization is prominent in developing countries, and combined with the fact that water quality is affected directly by urbanization, this means that water quality in developing countries is very poor. The social lives of people are impacted by the amount and quality of water that they can obtain daily. Each day, every person needs a minimum of 7.5 liters to meet their basic needs of hygiene, drinking water, and food preparation. In developing countries, people struggle in order to obtain this amount every day, which often leads to them skimping on some of these, at least one of these aspects. With prolonged skimping of any of these, it can have catastrophic consequences, such as diseases and death. These reduce the quality of life for said person, affecting both their social lives and their happiness. This graphic from the United Nations Water Study shows the percentage of population faced with contaminated drinking water. The dark orange represents over 20% of the population that doesn't have clean water. The majority of the orange is centralized in Africa, which has been stated by the UN as being developing countries. This just goes to show the sheer amount of people without clean drinking water across the world and how the majority is concentrated in the developing world. Water shortage not only has effects on those who live in the area, but also on those who rely on the goods produced in these nations. For example, almost everyone has a product or a piece of clothing that says made in China on the label. This is because the majority of goods are produced in Chinese factories. When there isn't enough water in these Chinese cities to supplement the people, there becomes a lack of productivity in these factories. This means less goods are produced for the people around the world, and they are no longer getting these goods. Similarly, the province of Shandong, China's largest agricultural producer, is facing a severe water shortage. This poses a problem because its inner cities produce over 500 different vegetables that are exported to over 30 countries worldwide. Water is a very important factor in agriculture. With no water, the crops have no way to grow. As water shortages in China continue to worsen, their agricultural exports will continue to decrease as well. They won't be able to grow as many crops, which will result in a shortage of goods for those who rely on it outside of the country and a shortage of profits for those inside of the country. Water pollution from urbanization not only affects crops, it also affects the whole environment. Margaret Thatcher, a former Prime Minister of Great Britain, quoted in her speech to the UN General Assembly, stating, "Put in its bluntest form, the main threat to our environment is more and more people and their activities. The forests they cut down and burn, the rivers and seas they pollute." Thatcher is explaining urbanization. Through urbanization, society is developing more and more land due to population growth, and we are now suffering from these actions. As she states, we are destroying forests and our water, which are essential parts of the environment that keep us alive. Water is essential for keeping people from dying of thirst, and trees and plants from forests are needed in order to take out the carbon dioxide from our atmosphere and produce oxygen that we need to breathe. When contaminated water gets into the roots of the plants and trees, it can kill the plant life, which combined with deforestation, which Thatcher already talked about, this is depleting our tree sources, and this is a huge loss of oxygen for the earth. Millions are dying from preventable waterborne diseases caused by the drinking of polluted water, and something must be done about it. It may appear that climate change and global warming are more of a threat to water infrastructure than urbanization. Climate change does dry up some major water sources, however, the urbanization's impact is larger, since climate change is a result of urbanization, as well as the fact that a regression model has shown that close to 94% of the variability in water classifications is explained by industrial land use, meaning less than 6% of the quality degradation could possibly be a result of climate change, while 94% is a direct result of urbanization, clearly showing that urbanization has a larger effect on the water quality. A solution to this, the most plausible solution to this, is to combine water restriction and banning waste dumping at a global level by the United Nations. This would create a set of universal water restrictions, so everywhere water usage would be the same. Developed and water-stable countries would be expected to donate time, money, and resources to distressed countries in order to help manage their waste and to keep those people safe. However, since the world is not run by one leader and the UN cannot force all countries to follow, there is no guarantee that everyone would get involved. But even just some countries participating would make a huge difference to the lives of the millions affected by the water crisis every day.
Okay, a couple questions for you, Aubrey. First one is, how did your research question evolve as you moved through the research process? And did your research go in a different direction than you had originally planned?
So first I had focused more on, I first started out focusing on just how urbanization affects all natural resources, which I had gotten from Thatcher talking about how the people are the main cause of the degradation of natural resources. But then as I was doing a lot of research, I felt like that was kind of broad and there was a lot of different ways it could go in. And I started to find a lot of stuff on water, and that wasn't exactly how I had expected to go, because I didn't really know how much of an effect it had beforehand, but I found a majority of my research to that, so I decided to change it and to go straight into that that section. And it did surprise me what I found, because I didn't expect it to go in this direction, but I was really interested in what I did end up finding.
Good. And then your second one is, what additional questions emerged from your research, and why are these questions important?
What I didn't really examine was the economic source of this, which I did find some evidence about. So I did have the option of possibly doing an economic lens, but I decided not to, as I didn't have enough evidence at the time being. But it did raise the question of how does this affect the economies of both developing countries and developed countries. And there was a lot. I think there really could be a lot of research that could supplement that.